What's going on, everybody? Sorry it's been so long since I've done a recording, but anyway, here I am and wanted to get some new stuff out there on the channel. And I've been playing a fair amount recently, been playing mainly an Andy deck in terms of runner, and was playing Near Earth quite a bit as the Corp. Um, but after the StimHack League, which I participated in, I was just trying some new stuff. Came across this Kate deck that I started originally, had Underworld Contacts, and actually performed quite well with the contacts, believe it or not. But once I made the transition into turning this into maybe a truly competitive tournament deck, I took it out simply just for deck space, not because they weren't effective, but it just saves some room when you have to play the three contacts and then find room for link. And generally, I think you need to play at least 4 or 5 cards for link to make contacts work. Um, I just needed other cards that seemed more important, and I had other ways of making money that were just as good. So, um, anyway, I'll get into the deck here and explain a few ideas. There is a proxy in here. This LLDS processor is not that. I will get to what it is a little bit later. But anyway, we got Sure Gamble, which is pretty much an auto include. Most decks will play it. There are a few exceptions, I think, that maybe you don't want to play this card, but in general, certainly this deck wants to play it. Daily casts, I had 3. I wish I had 3, but due to deck space, I'm playing 2. The deck actually is quite rich, so I don't necessarily need all 3, but it's a really nice card. I've really come to appreciate Daily Cast. Sort of keeps your momentum going throughout turn to turn while you have them installed. So, Katie Jones, it was my basically my replacement for Underworld Contacts. Play 3 of them to make sure I try to get it early, and you can. Basically, Katie Jones is going to help you stay on pace with Scorched Dex, Sea Source, Tracing, that sort of thing. If you need to build up a big load on there, you can. Got to watch out, of course, for taking tags of breaking news and things like that, but 9 times out of 10, Katie Jones is a reliable way to make pretty good cash. Professional Contacts, one of my favorite cards. I know it's not necessarily everybody's favorite card, but for me, what I really like about it is the fact that it allows me to draw really aggressively without having to worry too much about what I draw, because I know I'm going to get the credit anyway. And yeah, I mean, there are games where maybe I don't get it early, but I sort of have 3 key econ cards, which is Personal Workshop, Katie Jones, and Professional Contacts. So typically I'm getting 2 of the 3 early, which sets me up pretty good because I can make a lot of money off all 3 of these. But ideally, this is going to be in the opening hand with like a Sure Gamble. That's always awesome. But I think the thing about Professional Contacts, I think too, is playing it where you're maximizing its efficiency. So in other words, if I have it in my hand, I'm going to do my best to not draw any cards until I can afford to play it. If I have a Katie Jones or something, I'm probably not going to click for credits until I can play it. So I want to do everything I can outside of, with my hand before I draw cards, before this hits the table. I don't know if that makes sense. I'll have to explain that in the game sometime. But Personal Workshop, great econ card, number 1. Number 2, you can have a couple of them on the table. So if you really need to get some things into play, like some hardware, in particular, maybe like interfaces or memory, you can roll those off pretty quick with this. But number 2, it gives you a ton of versatility. So I can have a full program suite hanging on the Personal Workshop, and I know that I'll be able to get into any server that I want without having to pay the money to install something I might not need during that run. So The ultimate flexibility and econ of Personal Workshop is awesome. I also want to note, I know a lot of people say don't play Workshop in Kate. Well, I can see that argument because you're not getting Kate's credit benefit discount when something installs off Workshop. So honestly, though, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things that cost 1 credit. So I let the bigger items trickle off the Personal Workshop, and then I install the 1 credit items for free. And then occasionally I have turns where the install is used by the workshop, and then I'll just try to get multiple things installed, which is usually what I'm doing with a StimHack anyway. So there's ways to play around it where you can still make Kate's ability very useful. I don't think it really comes in the way. In fact, I think I still get a lot of value out of Kate's benefit, even playing Personal Workshop. StimHack matches so well with the Workshop, self-modifying code, and clone chip. Because it gives you 9 credits while on a run to get whatever you need, and since that's Shaper's thing, basically installing on the fly, StimHack is such a great card for this deck. So additionally, Net Celebrity, the only current I'm playing 2, and primarily I would say its function is to be a counter to the really strong currents that Corps are playing, in particular Manhunt and Enhanced Login Protocol. However, it's very nice if somebody calls out self-modifying code with what's that called, targeted marketing. Okay, cool, well, I'll just kill that with Net Celebrity. Not to mention I get the recurring credit for running, so that couples with the workshop and or installing while I'm running on the fly. So it has decent synergy with the deck, but more importantly, it counters those big currents that are pretty debilitating. And I'm actually quite happy that I put this in the deck. I don't see myself taking this out for those reasons. Self-modifying code, I think, is if anyone who's played Shaper, it's not necessarily an auto-include in all Shaper decks because maybe you're cheating things in with a test run scavenge and you have other ways to tutor. But self-modifying code is certainly, I think, the way to go if you're going to be using StimHack and sort of the go get anything you want whenever you want on the fly approach to playing Shaper, which might be their biggest strength, so why not accentuate it with self-modifying code? Femme Fatale is still a very strong card, even though it's very expensive, but I can usually, I usually try to put, that's going to be one of the first things I put on a Personal Workshop, so try to get the cost down to 5, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And that really, really obviously saves a ton of money if you can just let it trickle off on a workshop. Otherwise, it's still always useful, even to pay 9 or 8 with Kate's ability a lot of times. It's still worth it to pay the full amount to get a Fem out, since like breaking a toll booth costs 7 with Gordian and 1 with Fem. Sometimes it's still worth paying the 9 credits to get the Fem in play, but just still a really, really strong card that's worth playing. Gordian Blade, I'm still my favorite decoder in the game. I have considered playing maybe Zoo, just because it's a lot cheaper to get into the game, and I have some other options to deal with, like Lotus Field, like Atman and such. But either way, it's going to be 1 memory, and the Blade has those games where it really shines, either because of its built-in 2 strength against like Enigmas and Data Pikes, or because they have stacked code gates and you can break through them pretty easy. So for now, it's Gordian. Mimic is a cheap answer to sentries like Caduceus, Rototurret, Guard, maybe a few others in there, Draco, whatever. So it's a cheap answer to the smaller sentries, where Fem might be a little pricey to just bring out a Fem to get through Caduceus. It's quite cheap to bring out a Mimic and get through that. So Helps me with the versatility, which is really the overall theme of this deck, is to just sort of have an answer, an economical or a powerful answer for everything I'm going to see. Mimic fits a niche of a few pieces of ice. I think that it's important to have it. Corroder is still probably the best barrier breaker in the game. I could play Snowball, it'd probably be fine. Maybe I will eventually to save some influence, but starting off with 2 strength seems really strong, and for now I'm going to keep it Corroder. Atman. So 1 Atman I think is really nice in this deck. I wouldn't call this a Catman deck by any means, but that doesn't mean that Atman is still not very useful in a Kate deck, even if it's not the exclusive breaker. So there's times where maybe I have like the Gordian Blade in hand, and then I go on a run with an SMC. So now since it's trapped in my hand, maybe I can't get it on the table. Well, I'll always have a backup with Atman. As long as I have enough money, I'll always be able to get through. So I think Atman's versatility is well worth it. Plus, I'm playing Data Sucker, so there's obviously good synergy there. Deus Ex is, in my opinion, for a Shaper deck, pretty much an auto-include to have 1 at least. Just for its versatility and the fact that it's going to save your life in a lot of games, literally, against Jinteki, Personal Evolution especially, or any deck that's trying to flatline you with net damage. And with Clone Chip and being able to recurse it and things, it can save your life multiple times in a game. It's relatively inexpensive. Plus, it has some versatility to be able to break through Bioroid Ice or maybe a big Sarugi or Kamanu. So there's a lot of versatility here. I typically get quite a bit of use from the Deus Ex, and will even recurse it often in games. So I don't, at this point, unless you're being really aggressive with like Net Shield or Feedback Filter or something, I think Deus Ex is the way to go. I think it's just the simplest, most efficient way, card slot wise, to deal with net damage. Data Sucker is always a nice card. It's always going to be an econ booster if you're making successful runs in Centrals, which I'm trying to do a reasonable amount of time. So enough to keep a threat with some tokens and maybe be able to kill things with a Parasite or get a discount and break some things by lowering the strength if I can. So these definitely come in handy. Nerve Agent is my multi-access HQ threat. A nice one at that. The only problem with Nerve Agent is the fact that you don't get your first run is not going to be multi-access with it. So, like, I used to play HQI, HQ interface. What I'd love to do is like drop an interface and then run and click through an E-line, see 2 cards right away. Can't do that with a Nerve Agent. However, by the time you're in there 2-3 times, you're threatening to see their entire hand, and that's pretty strong. So, the other thing too is being able to install it on the fly is really nice. So if I have a self-modifying code, I can actually run on click 1, and if I'm able to run and access 4 clicks, I can build up a lot of credits in 1 turn with the Nerve Agent. So great card. I think an absolute must to have some sort of multi-access HQ threat. So that's why I run Nerve Agent. And Imp is also, I think, so important for a Shaper deck. One of the things that Shapers lack a little bit is the ability to control the corporation. Certainly Anarchs do it with their tricks, such as Imp, or maybe Vamp, or just trashing Ice, or Keyhole. Ways of controlling the corp's deck, what they draw, what they don't draw. Controlling the board state, those kinds of things. Shaper doesn't really do that. Criminal, of course, does it just sort of by running and putting pressure on every server and maybe making it economically uncomfortable. So Shaper doesn't really have a way of doing that within faction, in my opinion. So Imp is probably the best card at just putting all kinds of weird pressure on the Corp, whether it be wiping out a Biotic Labor or Scorched Earth with an Imp, or whether it's taking out a Sansan or an Eve campaign, Pad campaign, controlling their economy, whatever it is. Getting extra cards in R&D digs by killing things in their R&D as you see them. Whatever it is, Imp has a way of helping you pretty much every single game, and some games it is an absolute lifesaver. So I think Imp is an all-star card and one of the best cards, runner cards in the game, hands down, and well worth the 3 influence. Okay, let's get to my super secret proxy, which is a spoiled card. Trust me, I'm not playing LDS processor. This is actually Astrolabe, which is a 1-cost console that gives you 1 MU, and its benefit is every time the Corp creates a server, you draw a card. So probably the biggest drawback for Shaper, especially against the power deck like NEH, Near Earth, or maybe RP, is a little bit of speed. So by getting that extra draw, even if it's a few draws a game, you get 3-4 draws a game. That's a full turn of clicks you get free from playing Astrolabe. I think it's a good enough card that is going to end up making the cut of this deck. I'm mainly just experimenting with it now, but it's done pretty well, so I don't see why I'll take it out. I can't think of a better console I could play. I was playing Box E, which is really nice because it gave me the extra cards when I'd play Stim Hack, the extra hand size. But for 1-cost console and Shaper, it's basically an Akamatsu with a benefit. So I think it's a really nice add to the Shaper faction. For memory, outside of Astrolabe, I'm playing Cyber Solution Memchip. And basically, I was playing one of these at one point. I was playing 2 Akamatsus at another point. And what I found is that the games that I was able to get a Cyber Solutions Memchip down on the table, I never had a memory problem the rest of the game. So I just thought it'd be simple. Even though it costs a little bit more, I still get the ability to use it with Personal Workshop, or I can still pay 3 for it with the discount if I really need to get it in play now. But having that extra memory, obviously I play a lot of programs here and a lot of different ones at that, so there are certain games where I might want to have many of these programs installed, and just having that extra MU is useful because it's very difficult. It's sometimes there's those games where you need to bring something in on the table, or a workshop, something is trickling off the workshop, and if you're out of memory, you don't have a choice. You have to install what's on the workshop, which means something else has to trash if you're out of memory. So why not play it a little bit safe, have the extra MU so I never have to run into that issue. So that's what I did. And Clone Chip is just, again, a fantastic recursion card. Use it while on the fly. Stim Hack, Clone Chip something back into play. What I mainly use Clone Chip for is going to be Parasites, Deus Ex, and self-modifying codes. Those are typically the things. Oh, and Imp. Those are the things I'm usually recursing, and because breakers are typically staying on the table. Obviously, if I lose a breaker, that's probably something I'm going to recurse. But in general, Clone Chip, just an amazing card, staple of the Shaper faction. And let's get to the favorite part of my deck, which is 3 R&D Interface and 2 Maker's Eye. And I just want to highlight this and sort of make a point about my approach to Netrunner in general as the runner. And that is, at the end of the day, the way you win as the runner is you access cards, period. And I think that the best way to evaluate a runner deck, win or lose, is how many cards and basically how many cards in the central servers did I access this game. And, we've all had those games where you see 12, 15, 20 cards in R&D and maybe you score 2, 4 points. But you know what? Those are games you shouldn't feel bad about because you had enough accesses to win the game. And, I think there's certain things like, and I'm guilty of this too, I think sometimes when I deck build, that we can get so caught up in wanting to make a concept work or wanting to make some sort of like niche card or clever idea to life. We want to do something like that we forget the essence of winning Netrunner, which is accessing cards. And I just don't think you can cut corners when it comes to that. And so, with the two Maker's Eyes and the R&D interfaces, I can get up to, what is that, 6 cards in a run in R&D. Not to mention get massive locks on R&D, where they have a really difficult time drawing out of them. And if I have a huge lock in R&D and a Nerve Agent counter, Nerve Agent counters ticking, then obviously that's a really bad position for the Corp to be in. So that's what I'm trying to do essentially is keep enough pressure on the centrals and remotes early to sort of keep the Corp from being able to blow the game open and just run away with it. Because if I can keep them in check long enough, maybe I steal an agenda, maybe I stim hack my way into a server, maybe I snipe a couple in hand or in R&D. Anything to basically give me a little bit of time to find the pieces that I need to start taking control of the game is the optimal way to play it. I think the big question is, how is this going to fare against Near Earth Hub and with the speed of Near Earth Hub? And, the way I see it is it probably a little less optimal than Andy? It might be. It might be a little bit less effective at beating Near Earth Hub. However, I think that there's a certain, especially against top opponents playing the Near Earth Hub, there's just a certain percentage of games you're going to lose based on how the Corp draws and the skill level of the person playing it. So I don't think it really matters in those games whether I was playing Andy or whether I was playing Kate. I think the question becomes how, in those non-perfect draw games, basically, am I going to be able to access more cards with this deck, or am I going to be able to access more cards with the criminal deck? I'm still figuring that out, but at the time I'm leaning towards the Shaper deck, quite frankly, because I just tend to have answers for everything. So, and that's really fun to be able to, whatever the Corp does, you got something to counter it. And that's fun, and having the ability to seal a whole bunch of different cards gives you a pretty good chance to win. So I think that's why this deck is done pretty well. It's certainly a lot of fun to play, and probably takes a fair amount of practice before you'd be comfortable with it, knowing which program to tutor for, what to put on the workshop, when to play the professional contacts. In fact, I think one of the hardest things in the deck is juggling the econ a little bit, because common sense says to click Katie practically every turn if you can, but that's not always the case with this deck. Sometimes I might have Katie sitting at 9, and maybe I'll have a daily cast rolling and a professional contacts on the table. Well, I'm still making plenty of money that turn if I'm going to draw 2 or 3 and have this trickle off for 2. So maybe I'll just leave my Katie at 9 for another turn, so I can take that time to find the cards I need to apply the pressure I need. So there's a balance of knowing how to sort of finesse the deck a little bit, but that just takes time and practice like any deck. And but I'll tell you, I'm really excited about this deck. It's done really well against top players, and it's a world's contender. So if you have questions, comments, send them over. I'd love to hear them. Other than that, thanks for listening, and we'll check you out soon.